Gonna put everybody into breakout rooms. I want you to kind of talk through some of the things Ben had to share with us, and then certainly kind of use this as a way to get organized for your interview assignment, okay? So definitely take notes, and then we will kind of bring it all back together and just kind of talk through some different things. So of course you three will be here together. I'm assigning breakout rooms right now. And we'll meet back in about 5-10 minutes. Actually, let's go 10 full minutes here.
I would say nothing really surprised me. I guess Ben did the same thing as the guy that I interviewed for my presentation. I didn't know yet. So going into it, I was starting to reflection. Going into it, I had a pretty good idea of what they did in the position, like what happened all the time. So it just was more to build off of than my presentation. I guess that's good.
Yeah, I guess not too much. The main thing I got is I know that's not what I want.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't enjoy talking on the phone to people. That was my biggest problem.
That's what I do.
I mean, good to know what you don't want to do, I guess.
Yeah.
As much as you want to do.
I was kind of surprised that they had like 4 or 5 people for group ticket sales. Like it makes me think what NFL and MLB teams have, like they have like 10 or 10 teams for their stadiums. It just makes me wonder that. How often does he get to travel to Charlotte? Like does he get to go back and forth a lot?
So his brother lives down there, so he's been living with his brother and his family. He has he has a niece and nephew down there. But so I talked to him twice last week, just getting prepped for this. And I think he was furloughed back in, I think it was June or July.
Okay.
And then at that point, that's when he went down and he stayed through kind of the holidays. And then I think about a month, I can't exactly remember what he said, like 4 or 6 weeks ago, he was brought back on. But you know, with his position, as long as he's close to a cell phone and an email address, he can work. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to move down there at some point. I think he was talking with is there a basketball team there?
Charlotte?
Yeah, in Charlotte.
Oh, the Hornets.
The Hornets.
Yeah.
Basketball is like my least familiar sport, so I have no idea. But I have another classmate of mine that works within tickets within that organization. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking to make a switch. He's a big golfer, so can't do much golfing in Philly during the winter time. So
It sounds like he has nice flexibility in his job to go golfing and that stuff.
yeah, I think like that's. And I have found the same, like with just the recruiting that I do, like if you're talking to kids and you have something that you can kind of relate to, that's just like that, it just opens a huge door for like just random conversation, which is a really, really good thing, especially in that type of industry where, you know, it's all based on relationships with people. So that's, I know he really enjoys that. So. What were some of the biggest takeaways that you had? The three biggest things. I have the assignment here, so that's one of the questions. What really kind of stood out to you within that discussion?
The one I put a star by, when we go back to this, when he said be a sponge, when he had his internship.
Yeah,
He just got all the different information from each different job. He just tried to learn everything that he could.
yeah,
I just thought, like, once I get an internship, or like, if you get an internship, you should go around and just try and learn as much as you can.
and even within like your first real position,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, I've said it a handful of times, nobody's expecting you to be, you know, an expert in a field within your first professional job. It's just kind of maximizing the experience that you have. And I think, you know, especially as a young coach, you know, within my graduate assistant position, like, I was just trying to take up everything, every little thing that I could do, you know, just to kind of add to my toolbox. What else? So that was one thing, maximizing experiences. That's a common thread.
I gotta think. He said like, be willing to outwork everyone, and he did in his. And he said that's the way he got his promotion. So
Yeah.
just using that, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Just investing the time, right?
Yeah.
Tim Kite.
Still have to invest.
Building off that too, I think it was interesting, so he started out, they expected him like minimum 90 calls a day.
Yeah.
And then once he got promoted, they didn't really have a minimum or maximum, it just kind of goes to show like you couldn't work early.
Right.
They give you more flexibility as you go.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So it's really interesting talking with people like within, you know, phone sales, because it's for every time you pick up the phone and you call somebody, it's 30 seconds from the time that first ring goes through to when you're able to leave a message. You know, so like if you just simply do the math, if like nobody picks up the phone, that's a lot of minutes just dialing.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I remember that I was talking to Ben, and he was like, when I was in that internship selling tickets for like that minor league team, you know, I was almost like really surprised and startled when somebody actually picked up the phone. Like I was just so used to letting you go through and leaving voice messages, and then when somebody actually picked up, holy shit. Read through the script, where is it?
I didn't realize all the websites that he gave us to use, like to find internships and jobs, like that's.
Yeah, it's big time. So the one that I used is like the NCAA marketplace, and I do the same thing that Ben does. I always look at jobs, like every day. That's one of the things I do when I first get into the office each morning. Just see what was posted from the previous day. Not necessarily because I'm, you know, looking to leave, but like, for example, I have a friend, funny enough, who actually just got a job in Philly. He was a college teammate of mine. I saw a job posting that I had a connection with, and ended up sending it his way, and he ended up getting the job. It's like, hey, look at this. He's a young guy. He's 2 or 3 years younger than me. Actually, he's the same class as Ben. So he's been out 2 or 3 years, but yeah, the NCAA actually, they have a pretty extensive internship program, like post grad, but also like in you know, in school kids, you know, summer internships and stuff, which is real neat. They of course, that's a really nice organization because they'll, you know, put up housing and all that different type of stuff for you. So there was a girl, she was a freshman when I was a senior. She just finished her NCAA post-grad internship, and she was working within compliance there, and she just got a job at George Washington University, which is a Division I program in Washington, D.C. But she found that through the NCAA webpage, so just kind of have to figure out what you're interested in. Do you guys kind of check some of those websites out or no? A little bit?
I have been since he sent us those.
Yeah, and oftentimes, I know like the NCAA webpage, they will post jobs, I think it's like 9, 12, and 4, something like that each day. So usually I just check them in the morning and get the previous day activity, whatever. I'm gonna go refill my water bottle and then we'll bring everybody back.
I gotta get it like Friday, and that's it, something.
I think that's all, basically, all of the sport, right? That's what we're coaches.
Yeah.
They all are in that, I think.
If they don't want to, they want to,
He is, yeah, lifetime bonus. I don't know how it works exactly, but he said you have to like 2 full credits worth of teaching people time. Because, is that how that works?
What's that?
If you're a coach, you're not full time unless you teach. And don't you need like 2 credits worth of courses?
Yes and no.
Okay. Yeah,
So there are, every institution is different. Here at Wartburg, you're required to have like 7 credits of responsibility,
That's
whatever
right.
that means, right? So for me, as a coach, 5 of my 7 credits are coaching.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Okay.
then 2 additional credits. This is a 1 credit class, so this is 1. So this is my 6th credit. And then I teach 2 PE 100 sections during May term.
Okay.
So that's my 7. Now, I can teach more classes if I want. Like this is my first time teaching this class. So like, let's say next school year, maybe if there's interest to have this class during the, fall semester and then teach it again in the spring, I can build up and go from there, but minimum 7 credits.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's pretty common with smaller institutions, like here at Wartburg, but like I know the Naval Academy soccer staff really well, and they don't have any extra duty, like they're only recruiting and coaching soccer, of course.
Right.
But my other friends that work at, I don't know, Central College, for example, in Conference, I think it's 2 assistants with baseball and men's soccer, whatever. I think their secondary responsibilities like working with intramural programs here on campus. So couple different things.
Okay, everybody, so hope you had some decent discussion. We'll quickly kind of go through and recap some of the topics that you were able to kind of talk through. Just overall impressions, things that you thought were interesting, things you didn't think that you were interested in before that interview with Ben. So we'll go ahead and start with the guys here in the classroom. We have 3 people here. 3 people here in the classroom, so then we'll start going around after that. But let's hear from you guys here in the classroom. What were some of the stuff that we talked about?
So I said that one thing that I found interesting during the interview was that when he had his internship in the first couple months of his real job, that he said to be the sponge, so you just take all the information away from your job to learn all the different positions that you can go into.
Okay. Let's have like 1 or 2 other things.
All right, and then I just said, he mentioned that you just have to be willing to outwork everyone else to get to where you want to be, and that's what he said got him the promotion to group sales.
And then I'm working off that. I talked about how because he was working so hard early on, he kind of has less restrictions later on.
Yeah.
It's almost easier to work harder at the beginning. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think, a lot of it's just kind of recapping. A lot of it's, investing the time, being able to invest the time, but then also kind of maximizing your experiences with, all the opportunities that you're given. And I think if you're able to do that, that's really going to be able to set you apart with, some of the other things that we've talked through already. Let's go group number 6 via our Zoom breakout rooms. What were some of the things that you guys were able to kind of talk through during that 10-minute breakout room discussion? Group 6.
Well, we discussed the sales aspect of it. Like, we also agreed that if we were to work in sales in any business, we would want it to be in within sports, because you're selling something that you actually enjoy. If I could not motivate I could motivate myself to sell insurance, for example, if I get paid for it. But it's not like I can tell the consumer, the guy I'm trying to sell it to, that, oh my God, this product is amazing. This is something you're going to enjoy, you're going to love, which is something I could do with sports, which is what
Right.
it also seemed like Ben felt.
Okay, I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up, and I think, it goes to show you that, one, definitely be able to invest the time to figure out what excites you, figure out what you're good at. And if, interacting with, insurance or interacting with some other markets may be a little bit more challenging for you, maybe if you have to just accept a job, but really kind of target your time and target your resources on, finding, opportunities within sports. So that was good. What else from that group? Let's have one other thing.
Yeah, on top of that, we talked about one thing that we really appreciated was actually outside of the presentation, where he sent like a few of those websites to find jobs outside of school. We were really appreciative of that, because once we're done with college, we have to look for a job, and it's kind of nice to know that he looks at those websites, and they're trustworthy places to look for jobs in sports.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's one of those things where those opportunities are out there, but you may not necessarily know the best place to find job postings. And I know that's, kind of simple and self-explanatory, but you're not going to know every job, website where, sports specific, positions are posted. So LinkedIn is a really good one, and certainly the My Teamwork Online or whatever it was, the one that he listed, but there's a ton out there. So if certainly, take 5-10 minutes every single day to just see what jobs are out there, and then you're really going to be able to kind of direct your resources and direct your time into doing that. So let's skip to group number 1. What were some other things? Anything new within your discussion that hasn't been touched on yet from the previous 2 groups?
Yeah, so kind of what we talked about was how he talked about the kind of approaching it from the team environment and stuff like that. A couple of us obviously are athletes, and we kind of thought it was interesting how he kind of touched on it from that perspective versus us kind of seeing a lot from a coaching perspective. And then also we also kind of talked about how he emphasized on internships, because in the sports world it's really big on who you know, not necessarily, I mean, obviously your qualifications are big, but it's really important to make a lot of connections.
Okay, what else from that same group?
I don't know. A lot of the things that Davino said was kind of what our whole discussion was based on. I've liked the emphasis on the internships and resume as well. Being able to take what you learned from other places and compile it into one one, document or whatever showing what you have done to, make yourself more appealing to other businesses.
Yeah, and I think the one of the biggest challenges, especially young people exiting school and entering the workforce, you may not necessarily have as many experiences as somebody else who's been out of school for 2 or 3 years. So it puts an even greater emphasis on what you're actually putting down on your resume. A well-organized resume is going to be able to open a few doors for you. So that's a really good connection. I like that within your networking, the importance of that, and then also the importance of a good, solid, professional document list as you're starting to apply for positions. Let's skip over to group 3. What are some other discussion points?
One of them that we talked about that we really liked was how he talked about connecting with higher ranked like professionals in your career, just like asking them questions and learning from them how to do your job like better and more efficiently. That'll not only like help you get better at your job, but also they'll appreciate like you connecting with them, and it goes along with like the networking and building your connections with other people.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I have found within the sport industry, and that's the only field that I have experience in, people are really willing to help. You just have to be able to step foot out of your comfort zone and really ask for it. Because I think everybody everybody is wanting to connect with people. Everybody knows the importance of your network, and in order to make sure your company or your organization is advancing, you want to make sure you have the best people on your team as possible, and you're not going to know that by just going through and looking at a resume. So certainly being able to step foot out of your comfort zone, interact with people, ask for guidance or insight, I think is really, really important. And I think that for me was the motivating factor to start to incorporate some current professionals into the into the class, and being able to ask a couple of questions or being able to connect with them via LinkedIn, maybe send them a private email or a message on LinkedIn, thanking them for joining us. Something like that is a really, really simple way to connect with current professionals and set yourself apart from the other 200 candidates that are applying for a position. So I like that connection. What else from that group 3?
I would definitely say that we really just focused on the networking. I had some internet problems that day, so I really wasn't there for the full interview itself. But just hitting on the networking part and just how important that is, and just to kind of grow off of that. Yeah, good. Definitely make sure you watch that recording. I'm fairly certain I uploaded that, Gavin. So I don't want you to, miss some other aspects from that interview for this assignment. Okay. Right, yeah. I think I did see that posted too.
Okay, good deal. Perfect. Let's go one more group. Let's go group 2. What else? What other new aspects did you kind of talk through?
I didn't really like the interview. I'm not a big marketing guy.
Okay.
So that was just my opinion. That's about all he said about it. It was nice to hear his story about how COVID affected him and how he had to work harder than everyone else, basically. Yeah. But I just wasn't a fan of the marketing aspect.
Yeah, and I think especially within sales, it's funny because we had the very similar discussion here in the classroom with the guys that are here. Sales and marketing isn't for everybody, and that's okay. But it's important to realize that you're going to have aspects of sales and aspects of marketing in almost every job that you're going to, have. Like, for example, me.
as a coach, I would argue that my job is entirely sales. Being able to, one, make a connection with somebody as, a high school junior or a sophomore if I'm out working camps, staying in contact with them, figuring out, what experiences they're wanting to have, and then ultimately get them here at Wartburg, and then make sure that they're having a good experience while they're here on campus. So I think the point that you brought up, Andrew, that, maybe marketing isn't for you, very accurate. Maybe that's not something that you're particularly passionate about, but it's, I think there's aspects of it where, developing good relationships, you're going to need that for everything. I could, tie that into marketing or whatever. So that's a good observation. Okay. So we will go ahead and get started here for the presentation today. This is kind of the last 2 or 3 units are like only 15, 20 pages in the book. So it's not a whole lot of material, but it's fairly relevant, considering that a lot of you are wanting to, get into coaching or some aspects of coaching or, just working within, a college type setting. Okay, so let me fire this up. Can everybody see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Chris. So, talking about college sports here. Okay, so of course, like most things within sport, okay, there is an incredible desire to stay connected and just follow college sports. Okay, it's very, very significant. It has gotten to the point where, certainly it's getting to be a global affair, right? So a couple years ago, the book gives a couple examples. One, Notre Dame football went over and played, I think maybe it was the Naval Academy in Ireland or something. I can't exactly remember if Navy was their opponent, but being able to take a, Midwest, college, picking it up, moving that game 3,000-4,000 miles away in a foreign country and being able to fill an entire stadium with 30,000-40,000 people, that's pretty significant, and even though, may not necessarily have specific ties to that institution, I doubt there are many people there that had, 2 or 3 generations that, went to school there, but still, just being a part of, and following college sports is something that has, very much gotten to, at the highest level of, sports today. Okay, it's very, very consistent with, other platforms, right? The NFL has been talking about, potentially moving a franchise to London. Okay, I'm not sure where that, has gone or what, level of planning that is, still at. That was something that was tossed around a while ago. Okay, media rights, licensing, deals, tickets, and audiences. Okay, all share. All involved with that global aspect, right? Being able to, hop on your web or on your computer and pull up, English Premier League games, on a Saturday morning or something like that. Not just, college sports. I'm sure people in, foreign countries are doing the exact same thing. So that just allows the outreach to be that much greater. Okay. Once again, challenges that college sports are facing. A lot of those deals, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more into it at a later point within, this presentation, but a lot of the, you know, income that schools are receiving are based off of, cable package deals, the NBC network or the ACC network, linking up with ESPN or, whatever like that, whatever that dynamic is. I don't follow sports or college sports that on a national level, but it seems like more and more people are starting to transition into streaming services, whether that's, I think ESPN Plus is one. Peacock with, is it NBC? Peacock streaming? Yeah. So a couple different avenues where people are starting to shift away from just their basic cable packages within, the region that they live. Okay, so those kind of go, that goes to show you just how large and how big of a magnitude college sports has within our country. Okay, so similarly, if you remember back from kind of our last lecture, based off of interscholastic sports, so kind of like more at the high school level, a lot of things parallel within these two units, right? So if you remember kind of that organization that was formed within the Midwest, I think it was Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, whatever. A lot of that, started the ball rolling, and it was kind of within the same time. In 1906, different colleges were starting to navigate, starting to put a little bit more thought and organization into their sports, right? So in the late 1800s, it seems like sports on a campus or at a college level were almost activities for students to be able to enjoy and, participate with, maybe with the other school in the city or something like that. Maybe not necessarily a super organized, affair where you're, competing against that school across the town and then maybe the next city 20 or 30 minutes down the road. Okay, it was small, it was a lot more local. Okay. And actually the example that the textbook gave us was kind of specifically focused on the sport of football. Okay, in the late 1800s, there weren't a whole lot of rules that were used to play the game. There were a lot of injuries, a couple deaths, and things like that. So President Roosevelt, okay, brought together some organizations that were playing in some schools and started to implement, everybody playing on the same rules, okay, the laws of the game, different things like that. And then, of course, over time, more and more schools are starting to do the same thing with other sports and so on and so forth, okay? So once again, very, very similar and almost paralleling the high school sports and, trying to figure out different ways to navigate through, making sure that people who were playing within those games, were full-time students on campus. That was a real common one at the time. Oh, this is something, kind of another interesting point. The first collegiate sporting event was actually a crew race, okay, rowing between Yale and Harvard. It was a 2-mile race organized by some executives within a railroad company, okay? I'm not going to quiz you on that, just kind of an interesting fact. Okay, at a later time, I think it was 1940 or 50, something like that, the NCAA, as we know, was formed, okay? At this current time, there are over 1,300 schools, okay, that
are, a part of the NCAA, of course, and we'll be able to, I think it's on this next slide or in 2 slides, being, broken up into 3 divisions, right? So you have Division I schools. Clemson football is something that I follow, okay? My dad was a professor there when I was growing up, so I'm not a bandwagon fan. Division I schools, Division II schools, Upper Iowa is a local one here, okay? And then, of course, we here in Wartburg are Division III schools, okay? So that's kind of how they, have evolved through time. Okay, we have the evolution of the Power 5 conferences, okay? During, I think it was the 70s and 80s, kind of as, college sports really got to, evolve and develop into kind of what they currently are. Of course, after World War II, more and more, resources are being put into, college athletic departments. It's no longer just kind of student activities. It got more professional, frankly, right? Full-time coaches starting to work with athletes, more and more, television programs and television companies are wanting to broadcast games, so on and so forth. And as a result of that, okay, some of the most, powerful, programs in the country started to get together and say, hey, we want to be able to make a little bit more money. How can we, go through and make this happen? There's clearly a need or a desire from people out there to, navigate and, wanting to navigate accessing our, product that we have. So there was a lawsuit, I think it was, I can't exactly remember which school, that's not important, but more or less, it, started a conversation of having, media rights and television programs, starting to have contracts with, different schools, different programs, okay? And then certainly it's evolved to where, now it's a $1 billion deal, and that's one of the main reasons why, college sports has just blown up over the last 20, 30 years since this time. But certainly that is how things kind of started within, the formation of Power 5 conferences. It started with the lawsuit with the NCAA. Okay, this is a decent organizational chart here. For the current structure of the NCAA. Okay, you can see down at the bottom, kind of the different aspects within, the NCAA. So you have Division I, Division II, Division III. More or less, they all do the same thing, right? Within the divisions, the rules may be a little bit different. For example, keeping it simple with soccer, and of course, COVID has changed all of this, but before, we were only able to interact with our athletes for 15 total weeks, over the course of a school year, okay? 10 of those weeks were in our main competition season during the fall, okay? And then we were able to get 4 to 5 weeks, during the spring, okay? Now, with COVID, and this is kind of across the board, with Division I, Division II, and Division III, Division II and Division III, they transitioned into days. Okay, so we're now able to work with our athletes 114 days out of the year, however we want. Okay, that's one area of difference, but there's Division II schools and Division I schools that are kind of having similar type of discussions with, how is COVID affecting us? How is that going to affect the, different rules and, eligibility? It's a little bit different, Division I schools are, at least for the sport of soccer, are still on a dead period. So they're physically not able to leave campus and go recruiting. Here, of course, I've been fortunate enough to be able to go out and recruit this fall. But those are conversations that are happening within within those Division I, Division II, and Division III consoles that you see kind of down in these areas here. Okay. Some other national bodies within within college athletics. Okay, this isn't necessarily super important, but there are other organizations out there. NAIA. Okay, one of the examples here in the state of Iowa is Grandview. Okay, back in the 70s and 80s, I think there were maybe 700 or 800 NAIA schools across the country. And now I think it's down to like 250. Okay, more and more schools are starting to, join the NCAA. But that's certainly one other college organization. You have the Christian College Athletics Association. Okay, I think within that it may be 400 or 500 institutions across the country. And then the junior college one here, okay, that's for, once again, 2-year institutions, not 4-year institutions. Okay, they have their own athletic programs. I know, certainly here in Iowa, there are a lot of community colleges, which is great. A lot of them have, full athletic departments on campus, whether that's, maybe 4 or 5 different sporting programs for, the men and the women, which is great. Certainly providing additional competing opportunities. Okay, but once again, 2-year institutions fall within higher education. Okay. And the formation of athletic conferences. Okay, this is kind of interesting stuff here because it seems like things have evolved quite a bit since the original formation of some of these conferences. I remember back when I was in college, that was kind of when a lot of the schools were starting to shift around a little bit. For example, Maryland, University of Maryland, the Terrapins, they left the ACC, and which conference are they in now? The Big Ten, Big 12, Big Ten. So that was one example. Okay, but for the early history of that, okay, it started, just like the formation of that organization, within high school sports and college sports. It was just a way for, programs and institutions and administrators to help, just kind of solve problems, right? Sharing some of the issues that they were having and, trying to come up with ideas and different things like that, right? So that was, originally kind of the primary use for the use of conferences, okay? As things developed, as more and more programs were, added to those institutions, it just made sense to start to form, groups, or maybe not necessarily the word clubs, but, leagues within those conferences, because oftentimes they were geographically based, right? So it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for, a team from, Iowa back in, the 1930s or, the 20s to, drive or take a train all the way out to, Boston, Massachusetts or something like that. So oftentimes, if you look back, they're kind of little tiny pods. Now, of course, now you have the ACC, which I'm kind of most familiar with, driving all the way up from, Boston, Pittsburgh, all the way down to, Florida. And other conferences, especially within the Power 5 conference, they want to play real competitive games. They're willing to travel a little bit. Okay. Within that, you have some, different classifications, I guess, within, Division I sports, especially football, right? And as a non-football type person, okay, I don't know a whole lot about, the different conferences or whatever. So this was particularly interesting for me, being able to, do some formal reading on, the different classifications, I guess. You have FBS, the Bowl Series, and the Championship Series. That's more or less, allowing different schools that have different resources to still be able to compete at a high level, right? Like, what is it, North Dakota, that's a really, really good FCS team? Yeah, so probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for them to be able to play Alabama in a national championship game. It's a little bit different, recruiting pool, a little bit different resources that those institutions have together. But once again, who is is it Carson Wentz? Was it football? Yeah. Yeah, so of course, it's still attracting really high level athletes, but in terms of what those institutions have on campus to help those athletes is a little bit different. Okay, so that's kind of what prompted the organization or that current model that you see up there. Okay, once again, kind of touching on the regional, geographic distribution of those conferences, right? It just overall kind of makes sense to, have similar institutions in similar places play each other. Okay, certainly here in our conference, we play other private schools that are in the state of Iowa. It just makes sense, right? Now it can be a little bit more tricky, if you have, like, for example, let's say we have a state school in a private school conference, that may be a little bit interesting to have that dynamic, right? Because if that private school is $30,000 more a year, maybe that school's not necessarily going to be as appealing to attend within, in relation to others. So oftentimes, more or less, you'll find institutions that are similar joining together to be able to have a similar type experience. Okay, and then of course you have the historical HBCUs, historical Black colleges and universities. Okay, they have different athletic programs. Okay, I think a couple years ago, where I lived in Virginia during high school, Hampton University is a HBCU. They made it into the national tournament and maybe played North Carolina, and I think maybe won a game. Maybe they beat them. I can't exactly remember, but I remember that that was kind of a school 20 minutes down the road that, able to compete and play at a really high level. But those schools oftentimes have conferences. I think the book has, I think there's 107 HBCUs across the country, which is great. They're able to have a lot of different athletes and opportunities for, those schools and organizations. Oftentimes, I think the book said within those 107 schools, I think it's 230,000 students. So, pretty similar institution size to a place like Wartburg, where, it's kind of less than 2,000. Okay. Now, within college sports, of course, talking about the money aspect of sports, or excuse me, college sports. There is a organization, you can see it there, that more or less requires each institution to submit their financial documents. Okay, submitting them off, making sure that they are compliant within
the Title IX Act that was incorporated back in the 70s and 80s. Okay, I think it was like 78 when it was passed, or 74. I can't exactly remember. But this is an organization that makes sure that, you know, there's equal opportunities within the organization, but then also taking it one step higher, you know, making sure that those organizations on campus and those separate teams are receiving the appropriate funding, right? Like, it wouldn't make sense for a football program on campus to have, you know, 75% of the total budget, and then, you know, all 20 other programs on campus splitting the remaining 25%. You know, it's more or less having different you know, rules in place to help make sure that everybody on campus is having a meaningful you know, experience. Okay, kind of an interesting statistic. Only 22 athletic departments across the country at the NCAA level. Okay, of course, clearly it's all at the Division I level. Okay, I don't think there's any schools outside of the Division I level that are, you know, actually making money. You know, so that was with data provided from the 2014-2015 school year. Okay, how are schools doing that? Of course, it's, you know, based off of the you know, big deals with the television companies, you know, ticket sales, all those different types of things that go into, you know, big time sports. And honestly, it's within those 22, you know, schools, it's probably all derived from football, you know, more or less. I think everybody is aware of that. And then, of course, I'd probably argue that, you know, some of those institutions have really high level, you know, men's basketball as well. With March Madness, I think I remember reading something that March Madness brings in like $2 billion or something like that, just with the NCAA tournament within that. But how do other schools kind of, you know, balance the budget and make sure that they're able to, you know, have those opportunities for their students? The big one is just simply donations. Okay, I know, like here, for example, here at Wartburg, you know, with a lot of the facility updates and things that have kind of gone on over, you know, the last 18 months or so, you know, kind of those, you know, challenge days or donation drives or, you know, fundraising type events. Okay, that's a really big way for schools to, you know, generate money. Okay, and I think, you know, being able to, you know, kind of relating it back to just like making sure that people are having a good experience. If people are having a good experience on campus, they're going to feel more inclined to stay engaged once they're actually out of school. Okay. Therefore, if people are engaged out of school, they're going to be able to donate some money. Okay. Once they get to that point in their life where they have some more disposable income. Okay. Endowments, of course. These are more or less a huge, you know, bank account that each institution has as kind of like a reserve fund. Okay, some schools will be able to, you know, use the interest from that bank account to help, you know, subsidize their budgets or whatever. And then, of course, you know, some other institutional funds that, you know, those different, you know, programs and departments on campus have access to. Okay. Once again, this is really where things get to be similar to, you know, some more of the other conversations that we had, I think last week or two classes ago, with, you know, kind of talking through, you know, administrations and, you know, how those are kind of organized and set up. within athletic departments, okay? So of course, captain of the ship there, the athletic director, okay? This is somebody who, is kind of that point of contact and, helping, coaches and other administrators on campus ensure that everybody's, accomplishing their goals, making sure they have enough resources to accomplish those goals, okay? Below that, so that's almost like that, upper level management. You have the associates and assistant athletic directors. Those are just below, maybe oftentimes they will have kind of specific areas of concentration, we'll say. So, maybe, maybe you'll have a, athletic director of facilities, especially here at the W, right? So we have 2 of those, especially during COVID right now, where it seems like every athletic team on campus is trying to, get ready for a season right now, which, thankfully, at a place like Wartburg, we're actually able to do. I have friends at other schools that, just simply don't have the facility space. So you're going to need a couple administrators here. At, other institutions, big time football, they may have a, athletic director within ticket sales, with all of their basketball and football, teams and their stadiums and all of that. So you kind of get the idea. And then of course you have, first line managers. Those may be, event managers or coaches. I would loop into that first line manager type role. Okay. Once again, here are some other frontline managers, kind of almost at that second or third level. Academic coordinator. A lot of Division I schools have, specific athletic coordinators with their teams. I have one of my classmates is a academic coordinator at Virginia Tech, okay, in Blacksburg, Virginia, making sure that all of their athletes are, able to work seamlessly with all of their professors, making sure that, they're able to proctor exams if, baseball or softball are on, a 4 or 5 day road trip. They'll proctor exams, different things like that. Business and finance, okay? These are the people that, of course, making sure that, coaches and staffs and different people on campus are, working within the rules of their budgets, and making sure that they're using the money the right way. That's very important, especially, as you get into, booster club type programs where there's a lot of money coming into an individual program, making sure that, coaches aren't, doing stuff they're not supposed to. Okay. Compliance officers, Wartburg has one. Funny enough, it's Kelly Jacobs. Our women's basketball associate head coach. She is kind of that contact point person within the NCAA. So if we have, questions on eligibility issues, maybe we have 1 or 2 athletes transferring in from a junior college or 2-year institution, we would go to Coach Jacobs, make sure that, their transcripts are sent over, making sure that they pass the clearinghouse, all of those different things. So that is a very important job here on campus, okay? It's very, very technical, and that's a job that I would not want, okay? I'm fine teaching classes about sports management. Of course, the sport information people, okay? That's Trent Jackson here, okay? He's making sure the website's up to date, all of those different types of things. That is another really, really good way for, people that are still in school to get some, sport-related experience, okay? And then, of course, event and facility managers. These people make the institution run, okay? Setting up the gym for home games, tearing the gym down, getting it for wrestling, all of those different types of things.
and some other jobs, of course. Funny enough, the senior women's administrator, I think Wartburg has 3 or 4. My boss, Coach Pins, is one of them. Okay, so that is another really important aspect, making sure that, making sure that everybody is, able to, have that powerful, meaningful experience that, Wartburg can provide. I think that's really important, and making sure that everything, is up to speed, shared equally between, our women's programs, men's programs, because you can be really successful. You're able to attract a lot of different athletes and a lot of different, experiences within that. We want to make sure that everybody is going to have that opportunity. Okay. And of course, another really important one, equipment manager. Okay. Some, like with Clemson football, they have teams of guys that are able to, work within that organization. And of course, at smaller places, like a place like Wartburg, we may have to wear 2 or 3 different hats. So I would say I'm probably the equipment manager and director of ops for the women's soccer program. Okay. Just some more examples. Okay, within some of these governing bodies, okay, some of the unique skills that you need to be able to possess, especially, and I would argue kind of as, as administrators, regardless of, what organization you work for, or, whatever your duties and responsibilities are, you're going to need, some of these skills. Okay, certainly within the negotiating and just kind of coordinating, I'd say, if you have a couple coaches within your athletic department that, maybe knocking heads over, tight facility use or, spaces in the facility, you're going to need somebody who's kind of removed from the situation to help kind of talk people through it. Okay, that's a real important aspect of, managing and leading. Okay, being able to kind of do those things. Okay, and then a good note there, the first woman to serve as commissioner for a football bowl series conference. Okay. And then, of course, unique challenges, that college sports face. Okay, just being able to, manage all the moving pieces that are involved in, working within college athletics. Okay, you have, a lot of different, managers that are there to help you, a lot of different coaches, especially at a place like Wartburg, where I think we have like 23 or 24 varsity sports on campus. That's a really, really big organization. That's a lot of, things that the bowling team needs. That's a lot of things in women's basketball, women's soccer, men's soccer, football, certainly. So being able to, coordinate that machine and get it up and running, that's a real challenge. But then, the benefits, the benefits that each organization has or each, school has is just providing an opportunity for people to be engaged and, connect with others. I think that is one thing that really makes sports special, is just having that opportunity to, connect and engage with others. And, certainly when you graduate, you're going to still, be in close contact with the people that you interacted with here here at school, whether that's, on a sports team, maybe, other organizations that you're a part of, choir, band, other student council, whatever. It's just another way to be able to do that. And of course,
within that, because you're attracting different, people and engaging them, it's a great way to be able to deliver additional information about what's going on campus when you leave. Maybe, some people are going to be more engaged than others, of course, okay, but, having the appropriate, software and technology to be able to, post different social media stuff and, different, program or school initiatives to, make sure that they're reaching the, different people, that are, interested in, a place like Wartburg or whatever school. Okay, one of the other challenges that the book talked about was, being able to, monitor what's going on social media, right? When you have all of these, platforms and all of the, different, things that are going on, just, really making sure that people are portraying a, professional image, okay? And I would argue that that's something that you need to be aware of, as a college student as well. Whether you're, on a sports team or not, people are looking, people are observing, what you're posting. So really be, attentive to that. So that is all I have for you today. I went really long. I didn't mean to go that long today.